The Age of Giants, not the tacky team dressed in green. Sorry, my New York fans, I'm a Titans fan, which is pretty ironic considering today's video, but the big human type of giants like David and Goliath. You may or may not know, but in almost every major world religion and ancient mythology, giants are mentioned with an absurd level of consistency. Greek, Norse, Native American, Jewish traditions, Islam, Christianity, African tribes, Sumerian. I could go on. They all mention giants. You can't help but wonder, is there any truth to them once being real?
In 1911, giant bones were found in Lovelock Cave.
In the turn of the 20th century, the New York Times, London Globe published articles purporting the discovery of gigantic human skeletons.
What they saw next became the central claim of the entire Kandahar giant mystery. Standing roughly 13 to 15 feet tall, the figure was humanoid but grotesquely distorted. It had long limbs, sun-scorched skin, and thick red hair cascading from its head and face. According to those who later broke silence, its fingers numbered 6 per hand.
Even outside of mythology and religion, giants capture the imagination of humans and are still featured in most modern films and video games. If you've ever played the video game Skyrim, I still laugh my head off thinking about the rocket-propelled giant deaths. Whoever coded those definitely deserves a raise. However, if actual human giants were once real, why would the scientific community and military be so keen on covering them up and or preventing the public from finding out? Simply put, because it would redefine everything we know about human evolution and history. It would also give credibility to the deeper, unshakable truth of this world. The Bible, which if you don't know mentions giants everywhere, is 100% the human story and the enemy of mankind, aka the deceiver of the whole world. Satan does not want you to discover the truth, because once you do, you will never go back and you're one less human he can send to hell. Welcome to William Pope YouTube, where we cover what most call conspiracy. I call it reading the Bible wholly, pun intended. I apologize to the folks that have seen the last video in this series. I lied. I said I was going to cover the End Times Part 2 next in this real-life Star Wars series, but I'm going to be completely honest. The last book of the Bible, Revelations, is highly symbolic, so I'm still writing the script on that video and thinking about the best way to teach it. For now, I figured we would cover a bigger topic. Sorry, 2 intended puns in the intro.
No! God, please, no! No! No!
That I've genuinely been very excited to discuss. The Age of Giants. As always, if you aren't a believer in the Bible yet, just treat this video as a hypothetical and come to your own conclusions. For believers, we know that everyone is part of the same story, whether they want to believe or not, so we might as all well see what the Bible has to say about giants for our own intellectual sake. Let's jump in.
For a strangled creature.
According to the Bible, giants were not part of human evolution. They were abominations created by fallen angels. The story of the giants starts in Genesis 6. If you don't know, the number 6 in the Bible is the number of mankind and sin. Man was made on the 6th day, and the Protestant Bible has 66 books in it, so it's aka the story of mankind. I don't think it's a coincidence abominations to God started to spread and commit atrocities in the 6th chapter of the first book of the Bible. Genesis 6:4 tells us there were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, the same became mighty men which were of old, men of renown. Moving on to Genesis 6:5, and God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his hearts was on evil continually. Now, sons of God in these verses means fallen angels. If you don't know, there was a rebellion in heaven which failed. We covered it in the first video in the series, The Beginning of All Things. As a result, Satan and about a third of the fallen rebellious angels got sent to earth as punishment. And oh boy, did they hate having to spend their time with weak, silly humans. So what did they do? As gross as it is, some of these fallen angels did the birds and the bees with human women. And what came next was an abomination to God. Giant humans that had powers and strength beyond what God intended. They were called Nephilim. With this unfair level of power and strength, giants ruled the earth and wickedness spread everywhere. I mean, heck, even in 2025, you can look look up studies that show all US presidents are on average 3 inches taller than the average male. Humans love to look up literally to our leaders. Now imagine if our political leaders today were 12 feet tall and could step on smaller humans that they disagreed with. Yikes. The previously mentioned Genesis 6:4 verse also tells us these giants were men of renown. So Greek mythology and the other stories that mention demigods could be based off actual giants that once lived. If you were a demon coming up with your own fake religion and mythology to distract humans from God, wouldn't you also glorify yourself and your kids, aka the giants, through claiming they were half-breeds with gods? The wickedness of mankind and the giants ruling the earth is what caused God to trigger Noah's flood, to essentially wipe the planet clean like a chalkboard. Mankind was so messed up from the unfair power dynamic of the giants, alongside the lack of any formal guidance from God, that no one except Noah's family was following God anymore. We, as mankind, all abandoned our post, and when only one family was left that was still worshiping God, he had to trigger DEFCON 1, aka a global flood. Then the flood came and rinsed the earth clean of giants and every other living thing except what was on Noah's Ark. Since we have no way of knowing in 2025, that was unfortunately the end of the giants. There's been no discovery of them in modern times, and that's that. Thanks for watching today's video, and I'll catch you in the next one. Of course, I'm kidding. Giants appeared later in the Bible many times, and we still have rumors of them existing in 2025, alongside giant bones being discovered all over the world, but the evidence seems to magically get covered up anytime they are found.
So are you saying the Smithsonian hides evidence of giants?
The story is always the same. This guy's digging and finds these giant bones, calls the Smithsonian, they come over, they investigate, they take the bones, they go back, and then it disappears.
After Noah's flood, if we fast forward a bit in the Bible through Genesis and through the second book of the Bible, Exodus, where Moses leads the people out of Egypt, we arrive at the third book of the Bible, Numbers. In Numbers, at one point, God asked Moses to send 12 people from each tribe of Israel. There are 12 tribes of Israel, if you don't know, to go scout out the land of Canaan, which was a godless place. And some came back with some scary news. Numbers 13:33 tells us, "And there we saw the giants, the sons of Anak, which come of the giants, and we were in our own sight as grasshoppers, and so we were in their sight." So guess what? The logical conclusion here is that the fallen angels went back to sleeping with human women after the flood and created even more giants. We don't know how many giants roamed the earth, but we do know they were in the land of Canaan, which is this little stretch of land by the Mediterranean Sea. Worth noting that throughout the Old Testament, none of the 12 tribes of Israel, God's people, ever had giants' blood in them. Only the wicked societies that opposed the Hebrew God, which would line up with what the Bible tells us. Fallen angels slept with godless women and societies to create the giants. What's even cooler is that Caleb, a son of the tribe of Judah, wanted to go fight these giants while the other 11 tribes of Israel were scared. You skip ahead in the Bible to the book of Kings, that same tribe of Judah that Caleb was from is the only tribe from the 12 tribes of Israel that remained loyal to God, while the others caved much earlier and started worshiping false gods. Even cooler, if we go backwards in the Bible, Genesis 49, which is 7 times 7, aka God's number squared, tells us Judah, remember, in this verse, Judah is referring to the tribe of Israel, not a person. Your brothers will praise you. Your hand will be on the neck of your enemies. Your father's sons will bow down to you. You are a lion's cub, Judah. You return from the prey, my son. The scepter will not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet, until he to whom it belongs shall come. He to whom it belongs shall come is a reference to the future Messiah, aka the Savior of humanity, aka Jesus. If you take the time to trace the lineage and heritage all through the Bible, Jesus comes from direct descendants, Mary and Joseph, of the tribe of Judah. The first 5 books of the Bible, which we've been pulling from so far, were written around allegedly 1400 BC. The book of Kings, where Judah was the last tribe of Israel that remained loyal to God, was estimated to have been written in the 500s BC. Jesus, descended from the tribe of Judah on both sides from Joseph and Mary, was born around 5 AD. You don't know 5 is the number of God's grace found throughout all the Bible. It's actually insane if you stop to think about the consistency in the Bible. If the Bible was fake news, someone would have messed up at some point when writing it because they didn't know what would have happened in the future. With hindsight, obviously we know, but back in the day, they had no idea. Anyways, though, back to the giants. Those tribes of Israel definitely bumped into giants when they were scouting Canaan. The tribes of Israel even went to war with the giants much later. There was an enemy king who was a giant himself and had a bed 9 cubits long. His name was King Og, aka the OG. Ha! For those wondering, 9 cubits is about 13.5 feet or 4 meters tall. Since the bed was about 13.5 feet, it can be reasonably inferred that King Og was about 12 feet tall. That all sounds crazy and like a fairy tale, but check this out. This is an archived New York Times article from 1925, where in Mexico City, an American engineer discovered skeletons between 10 and 12 feet tall. Dozens of them. And it never went anywhere after the US government showed up to investigate. It eventually got written off as a hoax. Okay, then what about in 1911 in Lovelock Cave in Nevada, where 8 to 10 feet tall mummies were discovered? Not just a couple, but dozens of them, just like in Mexico City, and it never went anywhere after the US government showed up to investigate. Nothing but red tape and questions from then on. Also a hoax? Question mark? All right, what about the Grand Canyon, which has been notorious through time for UFO sightings, where a supposed underground city was discovered by a man who went by the name G.E. Kincaid. He claims to have found this underground city in the Grand Canyon at the turn of the 20th century, and he also claimed that it had Egyptian hieroglyphs and artifacts inside. He also had a top secret investor panel that saw this cave with him before he tried to go public with his findings in the hopes of getting rich through tourism and discovery. The creepy part, according to G.E. Kincaid and his investors, inside this underground city there was a massive chamber with giant mummies 8 to 12 feet tall, and they were all found laying next to each other on the floor, hundreds of them. It appeared to be a mass suicide chamber. It's like they all retreated underground and awaited their incoming deaths by laying next to each other on the floor. He reported his findings to the Smithsonian and US government, but you guessed it, nothing came of it afterwards. The Smithsonian said there was nothing there, and G.E. Kincaid was written off as crazy. His investors all pulled out soon thereafter. History now teaches us Kincaid made up the entire story to satisfy his need as an explorer to discover things. Even stranger, G.E. Kincaid randomly disappeared after this event, and his name was scrubbed from the history books. Not fishy at all. The point of me bringing up these 3 instances of giant mummy discoveries is that they all matched the description of King Og from the Bible, including the G.E. Kincaid Grand Canyon story. It is not a far stretch at all to say that giants could potentially have been real and were 8 to 12 feet tall. We'll keep going through more evidence, but there's a lot out there floating, and a lot of humans claim to have seen giants' remains through the centuries. The US government and many other government organizations around the world have meticulously stopped people from being able to investigate, and or they take the evidence as soon as any giant remains have been discovered. To tell you my theory in plain English and where I'm heading with this, I truly believe Satan, aka the ruler of Earth, is preventing the discovery of giants for a reason. For context for the non-Bible people, just to make sure we don't lose anybody, Satan, aka the devil, was not sent to hell after his failed rebellion. He was sent to Earth and has complete control over it in this era, according to the Bible. He is described as the father of lies. When these things that all point to the Bible, including giant remains, get covered up alongside any other supernatural, alien, or religious topic, it would be very much intentional by Satan. He controls what we see and has access to, and anything that points to the Bible is bad news bears for his agenda of sending people to hell. Fun fact, most people know, but the guards at Area 51, aka the alien mystery base in Nevada, where supposedly supernatural things get taken, those guards there have no name tags. Nobody knows who these people are that confiscate all the supernatural evidence and stop the public from investigating. If you believe in the Bible, then you know hiding the truth of God is Satan's whole shtick, so giant remains getting red taped aligns 100% with what the Bible tells us he would potentially do. He controls the world and he doesn't want us finding out the truth. Back to the story in a quick recap though. Giants existed before Noah's flood as babies of fallen angels and women. They got killed by by the flood. Then the giants got reintroduced back into the world after the flood at some point. The tribes of Israel had to fight them to gain control of land promised to them by God, including battling a certain King Og who had a bed 13.5 feet long. The tribes of Israel then encountered many more giants throughout their story in the Old Testament, commonly called either Nephilim or Anakim or Rephaim. These words all refer to civilizations that had giant blood in them. Joshua 15:8 tells us there was a valley of giants that Israel came across. 2 Samuel 5:18 also tells us there was a valley of giants. 1 Chronicles 11:15 also tells us the exact same thing, the valley of giants. And Deuteronomy 2 verse 10 through 11 tells us there was a tribe of people, the Emim, who were as tall as the giants and were counted as Nephilim because of their size. Then, much later in the Bible, perhaps the most famous giant in all history, Goliath, was challenged by Israel's most righteous future king, David. David was described as fair countenance, aka a soft boy, as the next generation underneath me calls them, and he was raised as a shepherd boy. Goliath was raised as a cold-blooded fighter and was the shining jewel in the Philistines' army. It is debated how tall Goliath was, but it is estimated that he was 9 feet 9 inches tall and had armor weighing 125 pounds, and that doesn't include the weight of his weapons. For context, Navy SEALs carry equipment weighing about 80 to 100 pounds for standard missions. Goliath was a massive warrior that had giant blood in him, and as we all know, David ended up winning that one-on-one fight. With a simple sling, a single rock, and God's will, he brought Goliath down with one shot to the forehead. Then he chopped off Goliath's head with his own massive sword. Talk about embarrassing. It's probably one of the best underdog stories in all of history, and even most non-believers have heard of it. What you may or may not remember, though, is that Goliath had brothers and relatives. In 1 Chronicles 25, Goliath's brother Lami was also killed by the tribes of Israel. Lami was also described as being about 9 feet tall by most accounts. Goliath had other relatives, Ishbi-Benob, Soph, Goliath II, and an unnamed fourth giant. They were all giants around the same stature, estimated to be 9 feet tall. We can't know for sure in 2025, but the takeaway here is that Israel didn't encounter giants every now and then. They encountered giants all throughout the Old Testament, and giants were very much real according to the Bible. Even more interesting, a trademark of these giants in the Bible is that many of them had 6 fingers and 6 toes, again with the number 6 representing mankind and sin. 1 Chronicles 26 tells us in still another battle which took place at Gath, there was a huge man with 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot, 24 in all. He also was descended from Rapha, with Rapha meaning giants. Want to hear something strange? Take a look at this old statue of Buddha that no one can explain. It has 6 fingers. Not a single architect or scholar in the world can explain why. My theory? Just like every other philosophy and religion that isn't Jesus, it's an attempt from Satan, his demons, and or giants to deceive humanity. Folks, you heard it straight from William Pope YouTube. Buddha and Buddhism, which I actually studied a lot in college and really enjoyed for a while before I became a born again, is actually a demonic tradition created by fallen angels to throw you off the trail of finding God. Buddhism is still ultimately an egocentric philosophy, despite appearing to be the opposite. It denies Jesus and the fact that humans cannot redeem themselves absent of God's direct intervention. We as humanity can't meditate or great harmony our way out of our own misguided moral compasses and sin. Judge cannot be jury. On the 6-fingered giants creating fake religions, though, ancient Egypt also had a god named Bes that had 6 toes. Babylonia, aka the civilization opposed to the God of Israel, also had 6-fingered gods. Hecate from Greek mythology, aka the goddess of witchcraft, had 6 hands. Many Polynesian gods in Oceania also had 6 fingers. Latin America has their fair share of 6-fingered giant myths, and even closer to my home country of the United States, Native American tradition teaches us that there were once 6-fingered giants that they fought with for decades. According to Native Americans, these giants allegedly came up from the modern-day Mexico and had non-stop battles with the Native Americans for land. They were described as having bright red hair and were massive warriors that almost completely destroyed many of the Native American tribes in and around the middle of the country. However, the giants were eventually defeated and were forced to go underground via cave systems once the Native Americans took control of the situation again. Most people know, but if this mythology has any truth to it, it connects with that story I mentioned earlier of dozens of giants being discovered in Mexico City before the US government shut it down. It also connects with the story of the Grand Canyon where the giants got forced underground. There also supposedly is an underground city beneath the pyramids of Gaza in Egypt, so let's connect the story to Egypt real quick. If you don't know, there are pyramids in Mexico. A lot of them. They truly are amazing to look at. The big question though is how were these things built and why are they still all over the world? We have pyramids in Mexico, Egypt, China, Peru, Indonesia, and even ancient Mesopotamia via ziggurats. No one can properly explain how or why these things were built by humans all over the world. If giants truly did migrate up from Mexico, there's your answer. Ancient tribes of giant built the pyramids. If we look at Egypt, we have more questions than answers on how pyramids were made. Specifically for the Great Pyramid of Gaza in Egypt, the stones have always been talked about. They're too big and they were placed too precisely to have been reasonably built using any ancient system we know of. Copper tools, which were the tools at the time when they were supposedly built, simply could not have built them without breaking. Also, no one knows where the stone themselves came from to build the Pyramid of Gaza either. They say they were put on boats and floated down the river, but truly nobody in the world knows where it came from. The pyramid also faces true north with a 0.05 degrees margin of error, which would have been impossible without GPS technology. Also, this specific pyramid does not have any burial inscriptions inside, unlike every other Egyptian pyramid. What if, just hear me out for a second, what if this pyramid wasn't built by humans using rope, slaves, and copper tools like history class tells us? What if the original giants were carrying and placing the stones, and this pyramid served a different function beyond a fancy burial house? What if these giants got wiped out by the flood and the modern day pharaohs simply stumbled across this giant perfect pyramid much later and tried to build their own pyramids to copy it? This theory would align with the biblical explanation of history, and what always puzzled me growing up is why doesn't the Egyptian government let people below the pyramid? If you don't know, it's been speculated for centuries that there is a hidden underground city beneath the pyramids. Go do your own research on this topic. There's a ton of evidence on it, and this is very similar to the story of the Grand Canyon that G.E. Kincaid claims. Just this year, sonar and radar technology discovered that there are these massive pipes that lead deep underground below the pyramids. What if there was and still is an underground city of giants below the pyramids, and that's what they're covering up down there? What if Egyptian civilization, which is commonly talked about as being very advanced for its time, was guided by these giants? We literally have no way of knowing because the Egyptian government simply will not let us go explore it for ourselves. You can go to jail for life if you trespass on the pyramids, and historically, people have been flat out killed for trying to go underneath the pyramids. Even further on this point, if you don't remember, Egypt was opposed to God / Israel. Think Moses leading the people out of Israel, not into it. As we all know, the Egyptians had a pantheon of fake gods that are no longer worshipped, and God hates false idols. Get this, Egyptians depicted their gods as being 9 to 12 feet tall in their hieroglyphs, which also aligns with the biblical description of giants. It's actually just too many coincidences for my brain to handle. Greek mythology also describes titans who were giants that opposed the gods of Olympus like Zeus. That sounds a lot like fallen angels and their offspring, aka giants, rebelling against God and his angels. In Greek mythology, the leader of the rebellion against Zeus was Atlas, not Kronos. A lot of people forgot that little detail. And fun fact, there's a comet in space right now called Three-Eye Atlas that is breaking every rule of comets we know. It has headlights instead of a tail, changes colors, breaks metallic composition rules, and appears to have propulsion that defies everything scientists know about gravitational trajectory. history. If we translate Atlas the Titan in Greek mythology to Christianity, he represents Satan, the leader of the rebellion against God. And most people are saying that the comet in space right now, 3i Atlas, is a sign of aliens being real instead of a sign of God being real. We as humans truly are dumb. I've got a video on my channel all about 3i Atlas if you want to go watch more, and all my theories surrounding it. And get this, at CERN, CERN, which is the world's largest particle physics laboratory, they essentially shoot particles really fast, and they're trying to discover this thing called the God particle. That thing that detects all that is called Atlas. The other crazy coincidence, if you know anything about me and my theories on AI as well as Sam Altman, I really think AI is going to be the end of humanity one way or the other, and that Sam Altman is the spirit of the Antichrist, if not the Antichrist himself. ChatGPT just came out with a program called ChatGPT Atlas, which is kind of their browser. We are glorifying Satan, and we don't even realize it. We use Atlas to try and find God particles when in reality we just need to believe in God and we're going to be okay. And we're using him in a context of AI to look up everything instead of just going to God in prayer and asking him to help you understand things in your life. It is actually ridiculous. Beyond Greek mythology, though, Norse mythology is also very popular, and it's all about the battle of the giants versus the gods. It's the central conflict. Celtic mythology also tells us that giants battled with gods. Hinduism says that giants battled with gods. African traditions say giants battled with gods. The theme of giants battling gods is all over the world at a ridiculous level of consistency. How did these civilizations, literally oceans apart and unable to communicate with each other, all come to the same conclusion? Even stranger, why do we as humanity in 2025 still glorify mythology and fake religions instead of God? You'll look around and see it everywhere. For instance, think about the opening of this video. New York Giants and the Tennessee Titans, like I mentioned. Fun fact, the current U.S. Deputy Secretary of Defense's claim to fame is that he founded a private equity company called Cerberus, which is a giant three-headed dog from Greek mythology. Oracle, also from Greek mythology, is one of the largest technology companies in the world. Amazon is the 5th largest market cap company in the world. If you don't know, Amazons were fierce, sometimes described as giant, tribal women from Greek mythology. There was a giant boat called the Titanic that we said God couldn't sink, and then it got split in half and sunk to the bottom of the ocean. Also, OceanGate, the vessel that got sunk to the bottom of the ocean, is called Titan. It is everywhere. Humans think we're being clever by naming our companies after these things, but we're actually glorifying false idols, which God hates. I mean, heck, think about the Apple logo. It's got a bite in the apple. Think of the original sin of Adam and Eve biting the apple. Satan is laughing his head off at how stupid humans are, truly. It took 2,000 years and all of us forgot that a man literally came back from the dead called Jesus. All this pyramid stuff and historical giant stuff sounds like conspiracy until you also consider other landmarks around the globe that are also so massive that no one can explain how they were built. For instance, think of Stonehenge. This is one of the biggest mysteries in the world, and for good reason. It is impossible for humans to have built this thing. No one can explain how or why. If giants did exist, though, they could just pick up these boulders and move them around to put them in place. Well, that changes things entirely, doesn't it? Same story with Easter Island, where you can find these giant statues that nobody can explain how they got there or how they were moved. By human standards, it's impossible, but by giant standards, very much in play. How about this giant wall in Montana, USA that was far too advanced for humans to have built at the time, according to most scholars? Or this giant wall at a landmark called Sakas Human, I don't know how to pronounce it, that was also way too advanced for humans to have built back in the day. Look at this thing. You're telling me normal-sized humans thousands of years ago were able to build this thing with massive rocks to such precision, and they survived to 2025? Or how about this world-famous location called the Field of Jars, where hundreds of giant stone jars were found that no human could have possibly been able to carry? I mean, come on, guys. The evidence is right there. It's staring you in the face. Anyways, the point is, a lot of the world actually starts to make sense if you consider that all of these locations at the time did not worship the God of Israel because they had no access to the information. These godless civilizations very much could have had giant blood in them, just like the Bible tells us repeatedly that they did. Even crazier, I know I'm just a YouTuber, but you may be more willing to listen to some battle-tested veterans from the Afghanistan war back in the 2000s. There's a story that still has people scratching their heads years later called the story of the Kandahar Giant. So the story goes, during the war, a normal US patrol squad randomly went missing near a cave in Kandahar, Afghanistan. After a day of being MIA, a second squad of elite soldiers got deployed for a search and rescue mission, and what they saw there next shocked them to their core.
Cracked skulls, ribs ripped open like plastic, not arranged in any deliberate way, just scattered, as if something had eaten and discarded them. Several bones bore what looked like massive bite or crush marks, too large to match any known predator in the region. After the incident, witnesses described a figure emerging from deeper in the cave, moving upright, fast, and entirely silent. What they saw next became the central claim of the entire Kandahar giant mystery. Standing roughly 13 to 15 feet tall, the figure was humanoid but grotesquely distorted. It had long limbs, sun-scorched skin, and thick red hair cascading from its head and face. Most disturbingly, it wielded what looked like a massive spear or pike. According to those who later broke silence, its fingers numbered 6 per hand. Its eyes were deep-set and unnaturally wide, glowing slightly in the cave's gloom, and it did not hesitate to attack. Within seconds, it lunged, impaling one of the soldiers, later referred to only as Dan, before the rest of the team could react. What followed was a 30-second barrage of bullets from M4 rifles. The creature finally fell. This was no hallucination, no poorly identified animal, no Taliban ambush. This was something else entirely.
Red hair, 6 toes, giants being very much real, exactly like the Bible, other civilizations, and ancient mythologies from around the globe all are trying to tell us. After this Afghanistan operation, the US government completely stonewalled the details of it, and everything became a classified nightmare. If you don't know, there's strict rules in the military that anything supernatural, mythological, or alien is strictly not to be spoken about. For better or worse, my entire dad's side of the family is from the military, and you would not believe some of the stories I've heard from them growing up. My grandpa in particular, may he rest in peace, was a top dog in the CIA. He used to take, in all honesty, steal classified things all the time. The things in his old attic that I saw would make most folks in today's time question their sense of reality. I'm not kidding. According to the military's official stance, though, supernatural things can exist and you get severely punished for bringing the topics up. Fully knowing this punishment penalty, though, why did trained and elite US soldiers all claim that a giant attack in Afghanistan actually happened? What do they have to gain by telling, under anonymity, that it was a real event and that there are still giants in the remote regions of the world? They're clearly not seeking fame or backlash since they came forward under the protection of remaining anonymous. Maybe, just maybe, they're telling the truth, and the US government covered it up like every other previous discovery of giants. Truly, the US government shushing everybody up is the common denominator in the stories, because the strangers from these stories do not know each other. The common denominator is not people making up stories, it's the US government shutting them down. Want some more concrete evidence for viewers out there still skeptical? How about when scholars and researchers dug up Native American mounds and found giant bodies buried deep within dozens of these things? Not one mound, not 2, but dozens of Native American mounds in America have been dug up and found to have impossibly large-sized humans within.
Giants is tricky because we don't have any hard evidence, but we have a lot of circumstantial evidence. The most recent would probably be late 19th century, early 20th, where you just had these discoveries all over America, over 1,000 of them.
There's a famous one from the 1800s called the Creole Mound, where many 8-foot-tall giant remains were found. There was another mound called the Grave Creek Mound in the 1800s that had even more 8-feet-tall skeletons discovered. Another mound in 1912 from Lake Delavan, Wisconsin, Johnson was dug up, and it had over 18 skeletons, including some over 9 feet tall. You won't be able to guess what happened next. The Smithsonian took over every single one of these mound projects, and the evidence trail abruptly stopped shortly thereafter. Even beyond this raw missing evidence, if we think about history, it makes no sense. According to the modern model of history, humans are getting taller through evolution because we have better access to nutrition and healthcare, and we're not going backwards in size. But the proof is right here in these Native American mounds that not only are we being lied to about the evolution theory and giants, but also the Smithsonian and US government are repeatedly stopping people from sharing the evidence they discover. Nowadays, it's a flat-out felony to dig up any Native American mounds. You can get sent to jail for years and fined tens of thousands of dollars. And as a local Tennessee native, if you don't know, we have tons of Native American mounds in Tennessee, I can tell you these mounds are considered haunted and cursed by the local population. If giants really are the offspring of fallen angels, and they are now disembodied spirits that roam the earth near where they were buried, aka demons, that would explain why everybody gets a weird feeling when they are around Native American mounds. One time as a kid, my friends and I went to this one out in the woods, and I remember I got strangely nauseous. I almost threw up and I had to leave the site. As even more evidence of giants though, less than 100 years ago in 1933, giant bones were discovered in a Missouri cave. They were over 10 feet tall. 10 feet tall, that is insane. But you guessed it, the Smithsonian shortly thereafter took over this project, and all evidence went down the drain, and the internal files at the Smithsonian were literally destroyed. You can't even look up the project anymore on the Smithsonian side. Truly, there is not a lack of evidence of these giants once existing. It's someone or something that is stopping us from spreading the truth and the evidence. The final thing I'll say on these Native American mounds, there's a world famous Native American mound called Serpent Mound, where it's this giant snake that's carved into the ground, and most scholars, it's very advanced for what most other Native American tribes were able to do compared to kind of what we see in the rest of the country. Think about this for 2 seconds. If giants were real and we carved a giant snake into the earth, do you know what Satan was originally depicted as when he convinced Adam and Eve to bite the apple? It was a snake. If we really want to keep going down the Bible and the giants once existing, there's a pretty fun theory revolving around giants also building an underwater city alongside the pyramids. Some would call it Atlantis. Amos 9:3 tells us, "Though they hide from my eyes at the bottom of the sea, there I will command the serpent to bite them." According to the Bible, there were definitely people living at the bottom of the ocean at one point in history, namely to hide from the incoming wrath of God. That is a whole nother video waiting to be made though, partially because I don't know how to animate water yet, but also because there's plenty of strange stuff going on at the bottom of the ocean that nobody can explain. However, unlike my last video, I'm not going to promise which order I release videos in, since my type B brain clearly can't stick to a schedule. For now, thank you so much for watching today's video. I would love to encourage all of you to go down your own massive sized rabbit holes on the topic of giants. The amount of mythologies and evidence out there is too overwhelming to ignore, and if you aren't a literal believer in the Bible yet, you owe yourself the curiosity to see whether or not you've potentially been lied to about human history. I appreciate all of you watching today's video though. This has been Real Life Star Wars, and I will catch you in the next one. Hello everybody, thank you so much for watching today's video. I always do these behind the scenes at the end of the video. This is the Premiere profile that we ended up putting together, a lot of chopping as you can see here. I also wanted to show you guys the animation because I always thought this was cool when I first learned it, but we just put together some assets. Obviously I didn't do too much hand animating on this video. We relied a lot on the AI stuff, and if you want to see the script, here we go. 5,700 words. Yes sir, we have a lot of fun. Honestly, this video was so much fun for me to make. I like to tell people the reason I make these videos is, yes, I have actually had a near-death experience where I was sinking to hell before I called out to Jesus. That is the hand on the Bible truth. And number two, I wish I had been taught Christianity this way as a kid. I feel a lot of people, understandably so, are afraid to talk about the supernatural conspiracy side of Christianity because it's such a deep part of the faith, is that, yes, there are angels, there are demons, there's this spiritual realm we can't see. Jesus wasn't kidding. He wasn't being symbolic when he was telling us to cast out those things in his name. I think it's important that someone out there talks about this, and if you have a brain like me, maybe you're also drawn to the conspiracy and stuff like that. If you did enjoy today's video, it took a lot of time to put this together. This is a longer one, so please like, comment, and subscribe. Really helps the algorithm. The next video, I don't know what we're going to do. I'm just going to kind of let the Holy Spirit guide me as I do this. Thank you guys again. I'll catch you in the next one, and appreciate each and every one of you.